As the summer travel season approaches, I'm excited to let you know about 2 upcoming Taste Travels, our immersive travel series hosted by cookbook authors and me, Matt Rodbard. On June 15th, I will be joining the Mediterranean dish author Susie Carache in Barcelona for an incredible week of culinary tours, cooking classes, and plenty of wine and jamón. And on September 15th, I will be joining author and baker Mauricio Leo of The Perfect Loaf for a tour of northern Italy. We will visit artisanal Parmigiano Reggiano and balsamic vinegar producers, take a masterclass in the art of panettone, and of course, eat plenty of stuffed pasta and mortadella in and around Emilia-Romagna. Both trips are nearly sold out and closing soon. If interested, write into hello@tastecooking.com and we will get you the information. That's hello@tastecooking.com. I hope to see you on one of our taste travels this summer.
But I think the most satisfying thing about the book is also documenting our cuisine and our culture, but also seeing people that are not from the Caribbean try these recipes and get so excited. And that is the happiest thing for me, because I'm getting people sending me messages of, I made the breadfruit pie, and they'll send me a picture, and I'm like, it looks perfect.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Eliza Barbanel. Nina Compton is the chef and owner of 3 highly regarded restaurants in New Orleans, Compère Le Pen, Babs, and Nina's Creole Cottage. Born in St. Lucia, she honed her chops at many notable restaurants before appearing as the fan favorite on season 11 of Top Chef. Nina's new cookbook, Kwéyòl Creole, written with Osayi Andelin, is a true standout, tracing her culinary journey from growing up in St. Lucia to cooking in Jamaica, Miami, and her adopted home of New Orleans. It's so special to have Nina in the studio to talk about making this book and her culinary career.
And at the top of the show, it's the return of 3 things, where Eliza and I talk about what is exciting us in the world of restaurants, cookbooks, and the food world as a whole. Liza, we're back. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm great. We're talking 3 things.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
I will. I had an incredible meal at Pig and Cow on the Upper West Side. I just want to talk about it. I loved it.
Yeah, I didn't know that they had a restaurant up there.
Me either, until I went. Pig and Cow, legendary Lower East Side restaurant, opened in 2013. Chef Leah Cohen is the operator, and they opened in December on the Upper West Side. They're going to be opening in Philly.
Wow.
Later, so there's a nice expansion plan, and I really love Leah's cooking, and she's going to be on the show in a future episode. And I mean, this is the kind of restaurant that does sisig, khao soi, Hainanese chicken. That she does rotis, and there's a big old ribeye all on the menu. And what I like about it is she's cooking the foods of Malaysia, Vietnam, of Thailand, and of the Philippines, where her mother was born. And it doesn't feel like there's a pan quotes around any of it. Each dish feels like it could be in a restaurant, a Malaysian restaurant, in Chinatown, Manhattan, or it could be in a Thai restaurant in Queens. I just think the food is so delicious and flavorful, and Leah is such a scholar of the cuisine. She travels almost constantly. And I love that it's in the Upper West Side, which is a cool neighborhood. Like, I was walking around and there's good restaurants on the Upper West Side.
Yeah, this is good to know that there's another spot up there that I should go to.
Yeah, I love it. It's Pig and Cow, Upper West Side. What's your first one?
Well, I'll do another great restaurant meal that I had recently. Great. I finally got to go to Abu Kir in Astoria. Have you been there before?
I have been there. I went before the pandemic. So.
Yeah. So as you know, it's a legendary Astoria seafood spot, Egyptian-style seafood. You go in, you walk up to the counter. Once you've been called up to the counter by the guys who work there, you choose your seafood of the day and then how you want them to cook it for you. And we got these giant Nigerian tiger prawns, some of the biggest shrimp I've ever seen, which we had them do in this kind of house mustard sauce with huge chunks of garlic in it. Whole branzino, also really good calamari, perfectly crispy, not too fried. And then because it's an Egyptian spot, you can also choose baba ganoush, pita, Greek-style salad, these kind of other additions for the table. And we walked in right when they opened for lunch on Sunday, and immediately it was about to fill up. It's not a big spot, but it was such a fun kind of rainy Sunday like feast to start off the day. Also, the guys who work there are all really like fun and funny, and it was just like such a great meal.
For sure. I was going to say the counter staff always, when I went, I've been twice, so friendly and cool. I remember getting a whole fish that had a kind of this really intense, almost blackened style seasoning on it.
Yeah.
So delicious. I love that restaurant.
Yeah, we did a branzino with that style, and it had almost like a cuminy orange kind of spicing on it. It's been open, I think, since 2015, but it feels like it's been a part of the neighborhood, I think, forever. So
Such a cool spot.
I love Zabukir. I want to go back soon.
Yeah.
What's your next thing?
My next thing is, do you know Menus by Brian? These little pop-up, not really pop-up, these small cookbooks. Have you seen? I know you're linked with indie publishing with Cake Scene.
No, but I'll check it out.
I'm so happy that you don't know, because I want to tell you all about it. I was up at Kitchen Arts and Letters talking with Matt Sartwell, and just lovely afternoon, just seeing all the great books. And he's such a terrific buyer of independent publishing, and he did his job. He's such a great hand seller of books. And I was at the counter, and I'm like, so what else should I buy? And I was like looking at, and he said, oh, Matt, buy Menus by Brian. And I was so impressed, and I would love to have Brian. And honestly, I looked for his last name. I couldn't find it. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. So essentially, he has done like 18 of these, and the 35-page cookbooks, and they're all based around a dinner party. So he gives you a shopping list, and then he gives you each recipe in order. And the idea with the shopping list is there's zero waste. So he's introducing, there's like maybe 3 recipes that use some of these products. So he's really thinking about one shopping trip, no waste. I'm just gonna give you a couple menus because I think they're beautiful. In issue number 2 or book number 2, he starts with a gin and Cointreau cocktail, moves on to spicy mussel soup, buttermilk brined roast chicken, freekeh salad with fennel and chilies, green beans with prosciutto and gremolata, and then to end, he's got a buttermilk panna cotta with fig and orange jam. It's like such a terrific menu, and I love the style of his writing. It's got a real vibe and tone to it. Beautifully produced books. These are Menus by Brian. I'm linking to the show notes. You can buy them on his website or up at Kitchen Arts and Letters and other indie bookstores. I really want to talk to Brian. Brian, reach out. Let's talk.
We're going to find him. I can't wait to check it out.
What's your next thing?
My next thing is like a huge development in my kitchen over the past week. Not double yolk eggs again, unfortunately, but
I loved that one. That video you did was so great.
People still mention it to me. Like the double yolk. If you're listening and you don't know about this, there was like a 3-week period when every yolk in my kitchen was a double yolk, multiple cartons of eggs. That didn't happen, but something else cool has happened, which is that Shirley's dad got us a datang, which is a ubiquitous Taiwanese household item. It's like a steamer, but also a rice cooker and a double boiler. It does it all. It's really exciting, and we got one from Yunhai, which also comes with a little recipe book. So it has recipes for things like sweet potato congee or black sugar cake or lu rao fan, like braised pork over rice. And you make it all in the datang, and you can actually do multiple things at once based on how you stack the components. So you can have rice going and then separately be steaming a fish at the same time. And when it was introduced in the mid-20s in Taiwan, a lot of Taiwanese households didn't have stoves. So they would be, cooking largely outside on coal. So this very low use electricity, multi-purpose tool was kind of widely embraced. And, Shirley's dad was saying that every Taiwanese household should have one. So now my household has one too. And it's just been really fun to be steaming things over the past week or two. And I think especially going into the summer when you don't want to have your stove on, it's really going to be a datang summer. For the past couple mornings, we just have steam buns for breakfast now because it's really easy to just set the steamer up, put everything in, and you can just walk away and it'll just kind of turn off when it's done. Making steamed eggplant, lots of things like that.
I love it. It's such a cool rec.
Yeah. What's your last thing?
My last thing is yuzuko, and one of our favorite products that they do yuzu juice in concentrate. And I was up in Kingston talking to Angela Pinkerton at Pinkerton's, her terrific bakery, and she uses yuzuko all over her menu. And so it's a name brand. We've talked about yuzuko, but they have a product that I'm really, really excited about. It's their first canned RTD ready to drink aid. They have a line of aids. They have a green tea yuzu aid and a sparkling yuzu aid. And I got to sample an early sample, and holy shit, it's good. It's not too sweet. It's exactly at the level of sweetness and sour that you want. I love the branding in the can. It feels great in the can just to crack the can and have some yuzu, some sparkling yuzu lemonade. And this is honestly, made for Erewhon. I mean,
it sounds really good, and I want to turn it into a shandy. That's my first instinct.
Summertime shandy.
Yes.
I love great rack. NA shandies are good if you pick the right NA.
I believe it. Kind of like Jordan's NA Michelada story.
Exact. Great call back on that. Yeah. So I'm going to try one with an NA. I like it. What's your last thing?
Well, my last thing is I have been out in the field volunteering for Zoran Mandani's mayoral campaign, and I just want to use the podcast to say that I'm really excited about Zoran. I think that if you live in New York and you're trying to vote for an actually good mayor for a change for the city, Zoran is really our guy. On the food note, he has a part of his platform wants to open city-owned grocery stores in every borough that would be selling wholesale price food. They wouldn't have to pay property tax in New York, so that would also be a way to bring the cost down. He wants to make all the buses free and actually run fast, universal free childcare, all of these things that I feel like as a New Yorker, I'm we deserve nice things. We deserve a city that actually is livable and works for us. And it's been really a little nervous, but also exciting to be knocking doors and talking to people about Zoran. And I've just been really excited about that. So Zoran for mayor is my third thing.
Yeah, I'm into the political angle here. I mean, any candidate who wants to fix the foodways in New York and wants to think about grocery stores and the way possibly let's think about that payroll tax we've been talking about a lot, the way operators have to operate with that 30% payroll tax. We've talked a lot about on the show. So thinking about restaurants and grocery store owners is terrific. So
yeah, I'm really excited about it. I know that's not a traditional third thing, but
hey man,
it's
we host a show and we're just catching up right here. That's what we're all about.
That's my third thing for the day.
And I'm just gonna do a PS. I mentioned I was reading Jinwoo Chang's "I Leave It Up to You." I mentioned I got through half of it and I loved it. I finished it. It's so great, and I hope Jinwoo will come on the show one day and we can talk about it because when writing about the restaurant family, the literal family, generational families running restaurants, and this one takes place at a Korean-owned omakase restaurant that has a lot of Korean dishes on the menus as well. I think Jinwoo did some terrific research, and I think in the acknowledgments he thinks 30 restaurants that had given him some intel. If you're interested in restaurant culture and family, this is the book for you. It's called I Leave It Up to You. I wanted to just follow up on that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your 3.5 things with me.
Thanks, Eliza.
Hi, I'm Avery Trufelman, and maybe you can relate to this. There's so many great podcasts out there, but it's impossible to listen to them all. That's why I'm so happy to be the host of Hark Daily, a new way to hear the best moments from the best podcast conversations. Each weekday morning, you'll hear 5 captivating clips from amazing podcasts on the day's news, culture, and so much more, all in 20 minutes. And it's totally free. Check it out at harkdaily.com.
Nina Compton, this is Taste. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
I'm so excited to have you here. I love going to New Orleans and I love eating at your restaurants there. So this is truly a special delight for me. I'm excited to talk about your new book today. But before we get into that, I want to give just a little bit of context into who you are and how you think about food. I'm wondering if you could share an early food memory you have from growing up.
Oh, my earliest food memory is actually a fun one. I'm from St. Lucia, and it's a very small island. And every weekend, we'd go to the beach with my family. And if it was mango season, we would take mangoes to the beach. And my favorite memory was going into the ocean and having a very ripe mango and dipping it into the salt water and taking a bite, and the juice is just dripping down my face. And that is my fondest food memory as a child.
I'm grinning so big right now because that sounds so delicious to me. And I love eating my fruit with a little bit of salt on that. I feel like that must be something you have to do just to try to replicate that.
Yeah, it is just the best experience you can have. Sweet, salty, juicy, everything that you could love in one bite.
And are you just chomping this mango like an apple?
Yeah. It's the best. It is the best.
It must have been hard when you moved away and you didn't have access to the world's best mangoes anymore.
No, and mango season is really a fun time. It's in the summertime, and everybody in the Caribbean gets so excited about it because it's the trees are laden with all these mangoes and the different colors. You have some are like purple, some are yellow, some are red. So it's just beautiful to see. And just the smell of mangoes as you're driving through the island is the best.
Wow. Do you have any tips on picking a ripe mango?
It all depends on what kind of mango you like.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different varieties. So there's the mango long that stays green. It doesn't change colors. So it's kind of hard to know if it's ripe or not unless you touch it. But then you have things like the Julie mango that are really, really small but super sweet, and they turn yellow with a little bit of pink and red, and that's when you know it's ready.
I feel like if it smells good, also that's probably
Yes.
a good indicator.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I'm going to be wishing that I had a mango and an ocean to dip it into, probably for the rest of my life. But today I want to talk with you about this book, Kwéyòl Creole.
Mm-hmm.
Is my pronunciation
Yes.
okay? Okay. It's a story of your life and your culinary career, and it kind of goes through 4 main places: St. Lucia, Jamaica, Miami, and New Orleans.
Yes.
I'd love to know how you came up with this idea for your debut cookbook and how each of those places kind of shaped you and your culinary career.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I had started this book, the first proposal after I did Top Chef.
Wow.
And people were hounding me. This is 2014. People like, oh, you need to come up with a book. And, you're hot off the presses. And, people are like buzzing about you. You need to get a book done. And I had written this book with the co-author and it fell flat because it started becoming a Top Chef cookbook. And I didn't want it to be that. And during that time, during the proposal, I got the offer to the restaurant in New Orleans. And I said, I'm like, I don't really have time for this. I need to move and open this restaurant. I need to focus on that. And I got really busy. And after many years, then the pandemic hit, which I thought was going to be a month. And then it was 2 months and then 3 months. And, it was a very strange time. So I said, maybe this is the time to pick up this book again. And I got a different co-author, Osai, who is just brilliant. And she understands how my brain works and how to pull all the stories out of me because as a chef, I'm very to the point. And she's like, no, it just can't be mango with salt. It needs to be, why do you put salt on it? And evoke those memories. So she did a lot of pulling those stories and these emotions out of me. And then as we were framing the book, she said, I think we need to focus on the different Creole cultures throughout those areas that you lived in. And I never looked at it that way. It was just my journey as a chef. But she said, no, this is about you developing as a chef through Creole cuisine and how they're so different as you went along. And then bookending, of course, in the Creole capital, New Orleans.
I think Osai is such a talented writer, and your collaboration, I imagine, must have been really special. And even in the book, you talk a little bit about bringing her to St. Lucia for the first time. What was that like?
Well, she came and she's like, I'm just going to do some research on the island and really dive deep. And my mom still lives there. And my mom took her around the island. They had lunch and they were just having the best time talking about the history. So that was really special for her to experience that time.
Yeah, I feel like hanging out with the mom of your co-author on the book, you must hear a lot of good stories that way. And also your family is like so innately tied to the history of St. Lucia. Your father was the prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you growing up and then having the opportunity to kind of tell St. Lucian stories now?
It's so funny because, excuse me, it's so funny because I always saw my dad as just my dad. Never as the prime minister. And he was just very down to earth. He was never flexing. Do you know who I am? He was just, even in the public eye, he was never about that. He was just very approachable and he was about the people. So for me, when people say, what was your life like? I'm like, I consider it pretty normal because we go to the beach together. We would go to the countryside. And it was never like this ritzy thing. It was just being together as a family. So seeing what he did and what he achieved for the island, I'm really proud of that because I was a child and I didn't realize how much work he was doing and how much good he was doing until later in my life, realizing that he led St. Lucia from independence from Britain. A lot of things that he changed. He was a very big advocate for education, bringing schools, developing people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you were on Top Chef, I feel like St. Lucia, the Caribbean, people were all kind of rallying behind you and watching it together. That must have been like a really special experience.
Well, being on Top Chef was kind of my moment that I realized that I could cook whatever I wanted, because I had worked for a lot of very good chefs, but I always cooked their food. So being on Top Chef, it was being in a pressure cooker. It's very high pressure, but I realized, hey, I can cook my heritage, my food. And that became a big driving force for me of cooking and letting people know where St. Lucia is, because so many people think it's next to St. Thomas, and we're not even close to the Virgin Islands. We're further south. So a lot of people now, when they see me, they're like, "You're from St. Lucia, right?" And I'm so like, still to this day, shocked that people remember where I'm from, because I had to really force that name so people could remember she's from St. Lucia. She's, because a lot of people think, "Oh, you're from Jamaica, you're this," because everybody thinks the Caribbean is just one island. And I really wanted to make sure people knew where I was from and what the island does and what it's about.
Yeah, if someone is listening and they, don't know a lot about St. Lucia, how would you describe like the food of St. Lucia to someone?
Yeah, the food is really special. It's French, British, African, and Indian. And then you have also the native Indians as well. So it's a huge mixing pot. And when you look at different islands such as Martinique, that is mostly French and African, there's no British in there. You look at Barbados, it's mostly British. So each island is very, very different. And I think when people do their research, if they're going on vacation or they're going to a Bajan restaurant or whatever it is, do a little bit of research, because each island is very different and the influence is definitely present in their food.
Yeah, and I think in this book, when you write about growing up in St. Lucia, then going to Jamaica and cooking there, like the food that you were exposed to, like having jerk chicken, like all of those different things, I think that's a good way of kind of showing the different kind of cuisines and cultures that are at play.
Yeah, it is. Jamaica was really such a fun time. I think I was at the right age where I was mature enough to live by myself and explore and really dive deep into the cuisine, the music, the culture. And Jamaican people are very proud and they want to share that with you. And a lot of things that I didn't know existed, because we don't eat cornmeal porridge. We don't eat plantain porridge. They have 15 different types of porridges, and that's just a thing that they do. And we don't really eat that much porridge back home. But also having veganism as a forefront, on the island is a very big thing. So just seeing ingredients that I grew up with prepared a different way was really special.
Yeah, ackee and like all of that as well.
We don't eat ackee in St. Lucia, and we still have a tree in my mom's, by the kitchen. It's this massive tree, and we would have ackees, just bursting out of the trees, and we wouldn't eat them. She would give them away to the Jamaicans that lived in St. Lucia. And when I moved back from Jamaica, I said, "Mom, we gotta keep some for ourselves, because this is really good." So every time I go home, we have ackee and saltfish for breakfast.
That's so good.
Most St. Lucians don't eat ackee and saltfish.
Yeah. I think also it was so interesting reading about kind of, growing up in like a small island and then moving to this big city and you being on the bus and trying to find a place to sit.
Yeah.
Just kind of like that whole experience of how your mind expands.
Yeah. It really is. I felt like I was a fly on the wall the entire time I was there, because there's so much energy, and Jamaican people, they speak patois, and it's English, but they speak so fast and it's all kind of chopped up. So for me, I would just stare at these people. I'm like, I don't understand, but now I do. But it's entertaining to watch everything unfold when I lived there.
Yeah, it is so special. And I want to talk about how you're speaking about Creole in this book, because I think that a lot of people probably think of it in terms of like the New Orleans, like French Black Creole, but there's kind of multiple definitions. How do you kind of define those and break it up in the book?
Well, it's really about showcasing the people as they migrated through the world and where they settled and how they left their imprint. And most of that was through food. So when you talk about gumbo, that came from Africa and ended up in New Orleans, and they basically, it was something that was basically modified in New Orleans. And it became very New Orleans, where Africa's gumbo is very different. But when you see those things to the islands, a lot of things like the curry came through the Caribbean, through people from India, and that came and they brought their own spices and they settled there. So everything is speckled, from the ancestors that came and left those things. So it's really a beautiful celebration of the dishes that survived so much time, and we enjoy it and we keep it. We don't modify it. So somebody asked me yesterday, did I change any of the classic recipes? And I said no, because that is something that has been around for generations. I would not want to put a twist on ackee and saltfish or green fig and saltfish. It's good as it is, and I'm not going to touch it. And I want to be respectful about that.
Yeah, I think this book is interesting because it is kind of like a historical artifact in some ways. You have these very traditional recipes, but then you're also doing things like drip catfish, which is not a fish that I think is very common in Jamaica,
No,
right?
it's not. Yeah. But that was something that was developed moving to New Orleans, where catfish is just bountiful. And I said this could be a great application of putting the jerk on there. But I think the most satisfying thing about the book is also documenting our cuisine and our culture, but also seeing people that are not from the Caribbean try these recipes and get so excited. And that is the happiest thing for me, because I'm getting people sending me messages of, I made the breadfruit pie, and they'll send me a picture and I'm like, it looks perfect. And that for me is the proudest moment, because I'm like, I did the recipes right, because I don't like to write recipes. I am by touch, feel, measurements are not really my thing. But doing the book was definitely a huge learning curve for me, because everything had to be measured, because it had to be replicated by somebody else.
Right, and someone who maybe hasn't made it before and doesn't know what it's supposed to look like.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how you approach the recipe development for this book. Did you do it in sections, or how did you kind of also find the time? You have 3 restaurants that you run.
Well, I have a good team.
Yeah.
And we would test the recipes out, and then if it was really good, it'd be family meal. And some of the staff were really excited about, this is going to be in the book. So a lot of the things are either developed through my journey. Some of those recipes are pulled from memory as a child. Things like my mom's soursop mousse, I replicated and I tried and tweaked and got it. My sister's cassava cookies, I'm like, hey, you made these for me. They were really good. Do you have a recipe? She's like, I just kind of eyeballed it. So a lot of those things were tweaked. And it was also fun having some of my staff do that, because the things that I grew up with, like breadfruit and dasheen, they have never cooked before. So they were like really excited about how to cook these things and treat them.
That makes a lot of sense. And also like talking about the way that a lot of these recipes are shared traditionally in an oral tradition, or even the fact that you are cooking by feel.
Yeah.
How did you try to, write everything down and get the measurements right?
Well, it would be cut an onion, put it in a cup.
Oh, yeah. The hard way.
Yeah. Or, it's very hard. I think a lot of people think cookbooks are very easy to do, and they're not. It's a lot of work, and you got to make sure every recipe makes sense and it can translate to the home cook. A recipe like the curried goat is a very lengthy recipe, but I wasn't going to take any shortcuts, because I wanted people to make their own curry spice and understand it's just not turmeric in a bag. It's a lot of things are in there as well. So having an appreciation for making curried goat it's a huge undertaking, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to order when I go to a Caribbean restaurant, but I've never made it myself. And when I sat down and looked at the recipe, it made me have so much more gratitude for the people who make it that I get to eat it from.
It's really special. Curry is my comfort food, and when I go to a Caribbean restaurant and I smell those things, it just brings me so much happiness.
Yeah, when you go to a Caribbean restaurant, what are you smelling or tasting or looking for that makes you feel like it's going to be a good meal?
Well, definitely if they're cooking curry, you can smell all of those spices. I definitely get curried goat, curry chicken, whatever kind of curry they have, I get that. Or oxtail, rice and peas, plantain in any form, whether it's fried, boiled, that as well.
Yeah.
Is definitely my happy point.
Are you a patties person?
I am.
What's your favorite patty?
It's beef.
Yeah.
Beef is just classic. You can't go wrong with it.
I like a good beef patty, but my favorite like local Jamaican place does a vegan lentil patty.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's spiced so perfectly. The lentils are like the perfect texture. It's my like favorite thing to order there by far.
Do you put cocoa bread or no cocoa bread?
I do get the cocoa bread,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a lot.
It's a
to
lot.
eat it
It's
like
a
as
lot.
the proper sandwich.
Yeah.
So I feel like I get the cocoa bread. I eat maybe like a third of the patty in
Yeah.
the sandwich, and
Yeah.
then I just use the cocoa bread to like soak up the oxtail. And
Yeah.
everything
That's
else.
a good move. I went to a friend of mine, Paul Carmichael, that has Bar Kabawa.
Yeah.
And he has all of the patties, and they are just a work of art.
I've been really wanting to go to the restaurant.
It's a beautiful. I've been there. This is my second time going. Every time and it's been only my second trip for the year. But
and it just opened also.
yeah, but I went last night and I had all the patties, and he has sauce that I told him, I said, I'm not really a sauce person, but this sauce is everything. So he's really taking dishes that are a little obscure and a lot of people that don't know Caribbean food. Like sauce is not normally on a menu.
Yeah, I don't think I know what it is. Can you tell me it?
It's basically like pickled pork. So, and he does it beautifully with blood sausage and sliced cucumbers and parsley and lemon juice. And then he basically cooks the pig's head until it's tender, and then you chop that up. So it's kind of like a room temperature chilled salad, if you will. But it's just a lot of flavors going around. It's beautiful.
Okay, so I'll order that. I'll get all the patties. Is there anything else you think I shouldn't skip there? when I go?
The okra is pretty good. And then he has the Salmon Gundy, which is a smoked fish dip with cassava chips that are perfect.
That sounds really
Yeah,
good
he's
too.
super talented. I'm really happy to see him really elevate and not elevate, but really bring Caribbean food to this forefront in this just beautiful food.
Yeah, I think it's one of the restaurants that I've been wanting to go to the most. So the
Yeah.
fact that it has the Nina Compton sign off makes me
but it has like a triple sign off on it.
absolutely. I want to talk a little bit more about the recipes in this book. So the curried goat is one of the project recipes. If someone is listening who's, buying a copy, picking it up, are there any recipes you would recommend that they kind of start with?
I mean, there's a couple. I think having like the hush puppies is an easy one, especially if you have kids. They're fun. I think getting the kids involved in the kitchen is also just a good thing to have, exposing them to something different. I think something easy like the coconut rice and peas is a good one. The jerk chicken, just making the jerk sauce, it lasts forever in your fridge or your freezer. And you could put that on fish, chicken, pork. It's just a good staple to have. So I think you can just start with anything. Just build it up. Don't start with the curried goat off the bat. Just work your way into it.
Yeah. I'm curious, from the developing side, when you were working on the book, was there a recipe that took the longest to perfect?
It was actually the black cake because, again, I don't measure anything. I'm not a baker, so I had modified because I think that they wanted it in cups and I had it in grams or whatever it was. Something didn't get transferred properly to the right measurements, and it was actually when we were doing the food photography, and I told the food stylist, I'm like, oh yeah, this recipe I've made 1,000 times, it'll be just fine. And we were baking the cake at Babs, and the food stylist calls me up. He's like, it's like a soup. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, I've made this recipe. And we were shooting at my house. So I came down to the restaurant and I'm like, that's just so weird. And then I looked at the measurements and I'm like, oh, the flour is off. So thankfully we fixed it. But that was definitely anything with the baking. That was, I think, the trickiest recipes for me.
I feel like that's always how it goes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were shooting at your house.
Yeah.
What was the whole book photography process like? Because you have not only beautiful recipe photos, but also photos from all of the places in the book.
Yeah. So we had Casimo Harris do the lifestyle photography. So we did Miami, Jamaica, New Orleans, and St. Lucia. So he had never been to St. Lucia as well. And he was just in heaven seeing the beautiful plants and everything. So I think when people come to a tropical island for the first time, they're just,
It's like you grew up like this?
yeah. He's just like, this is crazy. He's like, everything is so vibrant and so green and so lush. And taking him to the market, taking pictures of all the produce and the vendors and the fishermen. So we had a really good time shooting that. And I said, I'm just going to shoot at my house because we have a lot of space. And I'm like, we'll just have the restaurant bring, every day we do 10 recipes, and they would bring all the mise en place, and we do some of the stuff at the house, or we cook it at Babs, which is down the street. And I remember when the stylist was bringing, the prop stylist she's like, I'm going to bring all the plates and everything to the house. I'm like, yeah. And she had this trailer attached to her car. And I said, Audrey, this is everything? And she's like, yeah, and there's also stuff in my car. And we had thousands of forks and knives and plates and so many things and napkins. And I'm like, how do you pack all of this? And she had it, everything was on her laptop by item number, everything was labeled. She was so organized. But it was just great seeing her get excited about, oh, we're going to shoot with this. I have the perfect pan for this, and this fork, and this linen, and this plant. It was just very thoughtful styling. And it just made the book so much more vibrant, which I wanted. I wanted the book to scream Caribbean and be not flat. I want people to be like, I really want to make that recipe. Or when they open the book or they look at the book, they can't get their hands off it. And I think that's something that I wanted to make sure that was carried through from front to back.
Yeah, I really think I had that experience, and I don't even have the physical copy, so I was just looking on my laptop, which is not normally how books shine. But between the photos and the recipes and also the illustrations that you have throughout.
My sister did those.
Really?
My sister did those. So she's such a creative, and we were talking, and she's like, oh, I could do the chapter openers. And she did the map, and she did every single chapter opener. So it was just a really beautiful project, and I'm so proud of it because it was a lot of work. And there were so many times I would tell Usai, I just don't want to do this book, and she's like, come on, we're almost there, which was not true because we're probably like on chapter 1. But she was like really like encouragement, like we have to finish this project, and it is daunting because you think about how many recipes you have to do. And how each essay or each, recipe opener has to make sense. You want to make people know what the story is, make them want to cook it. And it just can't be, oh, the black cake is something we had during Christmas. It's going to be a little more meat on the bones.
Right. And also the fact that you started the proposal a decade ago, more than that, it must have been like such a long process. But I think the result is it's like a family heirloom. The fact that your family worked on it together, the fact that it'll be in people's homes, like I think all of that care really comes across.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about Top Chef a little bit. The fact that you first encountered New Orleans as a city when you were on Top Chef, I think must have been such an unusual way to kind of get to know the city. Do you remember what your first impressions were like in that moment?
Well, I remember when they said, it was like the week before we were going to film, they said the location was going to be New Orleans. And I told my husband, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to finally go to New Orleans. And I remember when I landed, we were in an area that did not look very New Orleans. It was some suburb where they held all the cast. And the next day we went to the French Quarter to the cast house. And I remember just driving and just being in silence, but just looking at all the houses and the people and just everything. And once we started filming, I was exposed to Leah Chase, Emeril Lagasse, Donald Link, David Kinch, so many chefs that I had admired. And I'm like, I'm cooking for these people. I can't believe it. And somehow it always, when we wrapped, and I told my husband, I'm like, I really want to figure out a way we can get back there. And it wasn't like a driving force, but it was always in the back of my head, like there's some way I need to end up there again. And when we got the chance to do the restaurants, we were so scared because it's such a big food city and there's so many impactful chefs and people know what they're talking about when they talk about food. And it's not just the chefs that are cooking professionally. It's also the home cooks. They know how to cook. People would bring you a quart of gumbo and it's the best gumbo you'll ever have. So when we got to move to open a restaurant, I was just like, this is pretty intimidating. And I didn't know how people were gonna, respond to us opening a restaurant, not being from New Orleans. And it was a lot of buzz. And I was really scared because everybody's like, oh, Nina Compton from Top Chef makes her return. And I was just like, I just want to come in very quietly, but it wasn't the case. But luckily, the people of New Orleans are so lovely and beautiful and welcoming that they were so excited. People were stopping us in the grocery store saying, thank you for moving here. And we're just like, nobody's ever said that to us. And it was just 10 years later, we're still there and we just love it.
Yeah, New Orleans is my favorite. It's maybe one of my favorite cities in the world. I have spent a lot of time there because my sister used to live there. And I think when you are there, you just couldn't be anywhere else. There's such a distinct sense of place. And I think that all of the people who live there know exactly who they are because they know where they come from. And they know that New Orleans is like such a special city for all of these reasons that you're talking about. So I feel like being able to kind of be a part of that city and contribute to it and learn from it must be just a really special experience for a chef like yourself.
No, it really is. And I think Top Chef did a really good job of their research on the challenges that we would do. It was very in tune with what New Orleans is about. And it was like a little educational tip for me doing the show of like what to expect. And it was just a great experience. And it led me back to New Orleans.
So your first restaurant in New Orleans, Compère La Paix, you opened as you were moving there. Then you opened Bywater American Bistro, or Babs as it's called now. Later on, how did you approach that second restaurant once you were already like living in the city, had a better understanding of the scene?
Well, it's a funny story. So we lived in that building where Babs is.
Really?
We lived upstairs.
Wow.
And it's a funny story because when we moved to New Orleans, I said, I want to buy a house with a rose garden in the Garden District. I want to live on St. Charles or something, whatever it was.
Uptown, yeah.
Yeah. I already had my mindset. And we looked at places. We had a realtor and it's too big or we wanted one story, whatever it was. Like nothing really spoke to us. And my husband said like, hey, we're running out of time. We don't have time to be house hunting and opening a restaurant. Let's just sign a lease in this loft for a year. Ended up being 5 years. But the restaurant down below, which is an Italian restaurant, Maritza, we became regulars over there. And we were thinking about doing a second restaurant, just bring something to the neighborhood. And the chef and his wife that ran the restaurant, they said, we're just tired. We just want a break. We just want somebody to take over the lease. And we're just like, we'll take it over. And it was the best time. So we did a quick transition and took it over. And it was great because we would just walk up one floor and we were home. So it's still going. I mean, we live a minute away from it now, but it's still going.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like Bywater as a neighborhood, there's been so much development and like growth there over the years. Do you have your local spots in the neighborhood?
Yeah, so there is Small Mart. That is this cute little cafe, and they have the best bagels. And that's a great one. There's also Petit Clouette, which is another cute little cafe. Bacchanal, Akamaya. Alma is a great, whenever I have friends in town, I go there for brunch. Amazing Honduran food. There's just so many places popping up now that it's really adding so much more to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think when people go to visit New Orleans, obviously a lot of people spend time in the Quarter, they go to the Garden District, all of that. But I'm always recommending people go to Bywater for an afternoon and walk around. Go to like Music Box Village also, which is, I don't even know how to explain it. I guess it's like a playground where all of the things make sounds.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting space to go. There's also Studio B that is incredible. So I always recommend people, like, there's a lot to do in that neighborhood, even though it looks a little bit spread out, but it's walkable, it's fun, and it's a legit neighborhood.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way when
Yeah.
you're there. I feel like New Orleans is a city of neighborhoods.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree.
So I imagine people must ask you if you would ever want to go back on a competition show. So I'm going to ask you that as well.
I have been asked to go back, and I wouldn't do it. They got me pretty close. A couple of years ago, they're like, "We're gonna have you." It was actually during the pandemic. They were like, "We're gonna be doing an international Top Chef that's gonna be filmed in London, and we're gonna have people from all seasons, from all over the world, and we really want to have you." And I started the process, and then I just said no. I said, I don't think I want to do this.
You don't have to go back through all of that.
It's just a lot. It's a mental game. It's a physical game. And I'm older, and I'm good. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. I have great restaurants. I'm doing great. So I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable and smart way to feel about it.
Yeah.
I think it takes probably a certain temperament to even do that one time, much less twice.
And it's a lot. I think it's the hardest thing I've done because there's no way to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Even though we knew that we'd be shooting in New Orleans, I'm like, oh, we're going to have a beignet challenge. No beignet challenge. We had a hot sauce challenge, which I didn't think about. So there were a lot of things that we thought we would have and we didn't have. And you don't have a cell phone. You don't have a recipe book. You're just going in with your knives and you're winging it. And it's fun if you can do that, but it's a tough. There are no days off. The schedule we could wrap super late, and then we could start filming at 5 a.m. So your body's out of whack. So it takes a toll. I don't regret doing it, but
you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. I'm good.
Yeah. If the pandemic projects were between going back on Top Chef and starting this cookbook again, I'm glad that you started the cookbook again.
Same.
So I want to talk a little bit about the book tour. I know that you're here in New York right now for part of it. What do you have planned, and what does it feel like to get to be in the celebration stage?
It's beautiful. We did an event in Brooklyn with BEM last week.
We're big fans of BEM. They just came on the show recently.
Yeah, they're just the energy is so beautiful. And the energy in that brownstone was beautiful. It was all Caribbean women that came. And it felt like I was surrounded by my sisters. They were just glowing and happy and complimentary. And so when you see that, the excitement that people have getting this book and getting to meet you or take a picture, it's really great. So, it's not a full city. We're not doing every city. We're just doing some selective cities for now and hopefully do some more in the fall. But right now we're doing New York. Then I'm doing Chicago in May, Miami, of course, in June. And then I'm doing the Caribbean in the summertime.
Oh, that's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
What's the New York event that you're doing tonight?
So we're doing a JBF platform, James Beard platform tonight. And that's just going to be a casual conversation with Osai and some small bites from the book.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't really talk about Miami and all of the cities that we've talked about, but I guess what did Miami bring to you as a chef?
It's so funny because Miami, when I moved there, I could not get my footing for some reason as a chef, as a person moving there. It was just very hard for me to get stabilized. And my sister was living there, and she had, she went to UM, so she had her her core group of people, and I didn't because I was working. And I remember I said, I'm going to give it 1 year. And we hit October, and I'm like, in December, I'm leaving. And then Miami Carnival came out, and I went to these events, and I saw my people, and then I started making connections, and then I'm like, okay, Miami is not so bad. And then 14 years later, I was still there. So understanding Miami was really instrumental for me as a chef. living in the States and understanding how impactful Caribbean cuisine is and seeing people use yuca and conch and, turmeric and coconut milk in these restaurants. And I'm like, this is beautiful. And also seeing things through a Afro-Latin lens, which I have never experienced living in the Caribbean because it's normally French, African, Indian. But then seeing people use plantains as tostones, which we don't normally do, but just seeing how they use those ingredients differently was so intriguing. But being surrounded with also people from Haiti, people from Cuba, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, and you also had Nicaragua, you also had Belize, you had people from Honduras, Colombia, Peru, and just being exposed to those cuisines I couldn't ask for anything better because the food was so energizing and so much flavor and just so different and so fresh. And I was just constantly learning. So that's what kind of kept me there for so long.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting to me. I feel like Miami, similar to New Orleans, is a very singular city in the United States. And when you go there, it feels like you could be in all of these different countries.
Yes.
It's the only place I've been in the U.S. where people speak Spanish first, no matter who you are.
Yep.
Which I love and I think is so much fun. But I had never been there because I grew up in California. Right. So it's like, flying all the way across the country. But once I moved to New York and I went to Miami, I was like, oh, Miami is incredible.
Yeah.
And the food I've had there is like the best food I've had.
Yeah. There is every cuisine you can get. Every cuisine. And it again, that's another city that is really about time and place where where Miami is. It's not going to Kentucky where you could be like, where is this? Miami is very specific. Just like New Orleans, you can just look at the buildings, the architecture is the same way that is Miami.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also similar to New Orleans, everyone in Miami will remind you that you're in Miami.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're proud.
Yeah, very much so.
What are you going to do when you go back to Miami?
I'm cooking with my best friend.
Really?
Yeah, so we met at Scarpetta and at the Fontainebleau. We reopened it in 2008. And it was just a crazy time. It was $1 billion construction to revamp it. And this was the height of the recession. We're just like, these people are crazy to do this. And it was such an over-the-top opening where we had the Victoria's Secret fashion show was like the opening night, and you had all these celebrities, and you had people like Mariah Carey. The restaurant was still under construction because we had opened a week after the opening of the hotel, and we had a construction curtain over the front door, and we'd be like testing the food, and we had Alex Rodriguez came in. And he said, "Oh, are you guys serving lunch?" And the general manager was he didn't want to say no. And he's like, "Of course, have a seat." And he comes back, he's like, "A-Rod wants lunch." And we're like, we don't have a menu. We're still testing the stuff. And he comes back, he's like, "Oh, he just wants a Caesar salad." We're like, "We don't have any romaine. We don't." So we're running around the hotel trying to get this stuff. And I guess he loved it so much that he told other celebrities. So then the next day, Mariah Carey comes in for lunch, and we're just like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here? But it's something I'll never forget. So we've been friends since that day, and so we're going to be cooking in his restaurant.
Wow. What did Mariah Carey eat? Do you remember?
I think she went roasted chicken, no oil, and steamed vegetables.
Okay, yeah.
But it was a wild time. Miami's a crazy place.
Well, I'm excited that you get to go back. It sounds like it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
To close today, I want to play a little rapid fire taste check game with you. So I'll give you some questions. You're going to play favorites and tell me what comes into your head.
Okay.
Your favorite ice cream flavor?
Pistachio.
Ooh. Your favorite late night snack?
Doritos Cool Ranch.
I'm really glad you specified the flavor because it does matter.
It does matter. It does.
Your favorite cookbook right now that isn't your own?
Ooh, Ghana to the World. That is a beautiful book, and I know Eric very well, and I got his book at the Philly Chef Conference 2 weeks ago, and everybody was going to lunch and popping around the city. And I went up to my hotel room and I sat and I read it cover to cover. And I texted him and I said, this is a beautiful book. It is just, it's so personal and it's so needed. And it really touched me.
Wow, I love that book and I love hearing that story. I hope you found lunch afterwards.
Yeah, I did.
Something from St. Lucia that you wish was easier to find in New Orleans.
Breadfruit.
Your favorite New Orleans restaurant that isn't one of your own?
That's not fair.
I know.
That is not a fair question.
You could do a couple if you want.
People would kill me.
Are you going to plead the fifth? You could not say.
There's just too many.
Okay. How about a favorite New Orleans bar to go to?
Bar. That's a tough one too. Well, I like Jewel of the South.
That's a good one.
Chris Hanna does a really remarkable job at the bar.
Okay, I don't know if you're worried about getting in trouble with the Mardi Gras cruise, but I was curious if you have a favorite parade to go to.
Well, that's a hard one too. I think I enjoy Muses because it actually comes by the restaurant. So the first year we opened up Compare, we would see the parades and you see like the big shoe. And
Do you have any of the shoes?
We have quite a few shoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, for people who are listening, they throw high-heeled shoes off of this.
And they're glitteratied.
Yes.
Yeah.
I aspire to catch one of those shoes.
It's when you catch a shoe, it's the most amazing thing.
And you have to be careful not to let it hit you in the head also.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. A scene from a book or a movie that you wish that you could magically eat in real life?
It would be Casino, where Robert De Niro says he goes into the kitchen and he opens the muffin and he says, I want you to count every blueberry that goes into the muffin.
So you want to eat it, not count all the blueberries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's such a good one. And Nina, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My
This was
pleasure.
so fun.
Thank you for having me.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Matt Rodbard and me, Eliza Abarbanel. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell, logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.